Yesterday, the CDC updating its mask guidance for schools. Tonight, how Brazos Valley school districts are now making adjustments. And parking changes for Texas A&M students this fall semester. We've got a closer look coming up. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for 25 News at 5. I'm Naya Gonzalez. Dozens of Texas House Democrats are backing one Texas rep that wants to give school districts a choice when it comes to masking and virtual learning. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat spoke to one Brazos Valley school district about their concerns for the upcoming school year.
The school year hasn't even started yet, and Caldwell ISD already has more teachers who've tested positive for COVID this month than this time last year. The superintendent says less than half his staff are vaccinated, but the school district does not require teachers to be vaccinated or share their status. With an executive order banning government entities, including public schools, from mandating masks and no option for virtual learning, the school district feels their hands are tied.
A one-size plan that the governor just mandates out to the state of Texas does not make any sense. And it didn't make sense last year, and it doesn't make sense this year.
Since there are no state guidelines, Caldwell ISD does have its own plan in place, including closing down a school if COVID cases surpass more than 5% of the population. Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
So taking a look at vaccination numbers across the Brazos Valley, you can see here 187,000 vaccines have been administered. First doses 103,000 and vaccinated fully 89,000. Now let's take a look at the percentages here for Brazos County. You can see first doses, that's at 56% and 48% are fully vaccinated. Now taking a look at Grimes County here, let's go back to total vaccination count. So 22,000, just over 22,000 vaccines have been administered. More than 12,000 have been administered as far as first doses, and then more than 10,800 vaccines, full doses, have been given out. And now let's take a look at percentages for Grimes County. You can see their first doses are at 54% and 47% for fully vaccinated. Now let's pull out just a little bit. Looking at the whole state of Texas, you can see first doses given out about 66% and 56% of fully vaccinated. And nationally, those percentages for first doses are 63% and 56% for fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, DSHS is partnering with the Texas A&M Health Science Center to give money to Texas communities to get more people vaccinated. The two groups will be awarding $50,000 to $150,000 to several organizations pushing vaccine education. DSHS says the grants will allow programs to expand their efforts in hard-to-reach communities, notably those hit hardest by the pandemic. And Pfizer is releasing new data on a COVID booster shot. Researchers at Pfizer say a third shot created 5 times more antibodies against the Delta variant in people between 18 and 55 years old. People over 65 years old had 11 times more antibodies. The findings have not yet been peer-reviewed or published, and the CDC continues to reiterate that a booster shot is not needed at this time. In Montgomery County, police arresting a man after finding more than 90 pounds of meth in his vehicle during a traffic stop. That man is identified as Jesus Acevedo Vital, a Mexican national. Officers also located a handgun inside the vehicle. Vital is in jail this evening, charged with felony manufacturing or delivering of a controlled substance and felony unlawful carrying of a weapon. A judge has set his bail at $300,000. A high-speed chase in Harris County ending in a high-speed crash. Officers attempted to pull a vehicle over, but the driver didn't stop. The drivers then drove through residential areas and onto a toll road. 2 people were arrested, one who was wanted for murder in South Carolina. He's accused of shooting a 28-year-old woman to death earlier this month. One of the victims in the crash says she's just happy to be alive.
Once I got hit, my car started spinning, and he kept going, and I looked, because I was like a little shook up, and I was looking down there and I seen like the cops still going and chasing him.
The Harris County Sheriff's Office says the chase started around 3 in the afternoon and lasted for only about 15 minutes. Nobody was injured in the crash. Texas losing a musical icon today. Dusty Hill, the bassist of the legendary trio ZZ Top, died in his home In Houston this afternoon, his bandmates broke the news that Hill passed away in his sleep, making note of his impact on Texas music and rock and roll. Hill was 82. Texas A&M making some major changes to its on-campus parking system. KRHD News reporter Rebecca Fiedler takes us on a ride through College Station to discuss what being a motorist at Texas A&M will look like.
If you park on the Texas A&M campus, you're probably familiar with one of these. Well, parking is changing now, and the university will now be looking at your license plate, not your rearview mirror. Whether it be in a designated lot or garage, students and faculty will now be given access to parking via their vehicle's license plates. Starting this fall semester, parking staff will be constantly driving through these areas to scan plates using camera technology in their university vehicles. No longer will they check for a plastic emblem hanging over a dashboard.
We've actually been using this technology for many years to run the license plates and see if we have any overdue citations or things like that on campus.
Sophomore Aggie student Jessica Williams will be parking on campus this year. She isn't sure what to think of the new system and has some concerns.
I think it's a little bit concerning just because I know some people's cars break down and they may switch out cars with their roommates or something. Like, a lot of my friends live in apartment complexes, and of course we all share different visitor passes and stuff.
Transportation Services has put into place the option to designate multiple cars for one permit. Though several license plates can be listed for one shared permit, only one vehicle can be designated to park at a given time by denoting the vehicle through Texas A&M's website.
My parking account is what every customer has with us. They go in there and they can update their plates. We understand that maybe a roommate shares a permit. As long as the license plate of the vehicle parked on campus is linked to that permit that day, they can park, no problems.
Jessica Williams says she thinks she and her friends will learn to adjust.
I do see how this is more efficient, though, for people to go around, and it prevents some sort of fraud. I see it as more of a modernization of the parking system because it allows them to do everything online rather than waiting for all of the parking permits to come in.
For those parking in garages, the university will issue handheld devices that will open gates. Faculty and staff will also still have the option to open garage gates with their ID cards or toll tags. Reporting in College Station, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
New research shows which hospital workers are at increased risk of catching COVID. People working the COVID wards had nearly 4 times the risk of being infected. But the research found no patient to healthcare worker transmission clusters. They were able to identify 3 possible healthcare worker to worker transmission clusters. The study suggests more consideration needs to be placed on infection prevention practices between employees. With increasing pressure for vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, there may be other simpler, effective methods to encourage employees to get the shots.
Very focused and intentional use of messaging can be helpful in encouraging vaccination, even with something as little and kind of small and as cheap as an email.
Henry Santos is a scientist on the Behavioral Insights team with Geisinger Health. It's a large health system in Pennsylvania with 8 hospitals and other clinics and just under 30,000 employees. Back in January, when healthcare workers were first eligible for the vaccine, the health system sent 36 general emails over 5 weeks informing staff that they could register. At the time, only 41% of employees had. Then the Insights team tailored 2 specific emails with different principles of behavior science. One focused on social norms, pointing out how many other people had gotten the vaccine. The other email focused on the risk of vaccine side effects versus possible complications from getting the virus. They found both emails were equally effective at boosting vaccine registration among staff by more than 3%.
So we think that we went on top of that by really carefully tailoring the message to encourage people to kind of give them the pieces of information that they need to make this decision.
The 2 more specifically crafted emails were also personally addressed. They came from a trusted source of authority, the Chief of Infectious Diseases. And they had a sense of urgency at the time, pointing out vaccines would soon be available to more people. Now, Santos says this method can be easily replicated. Only 70% of Geisinger health staff are vaccinated today. Well, still ahead in our lineup, doctors have less than 2 days to complete an organ transplant. How changing commercial flight schedules could make this process easier. A growing number of historically black colleges and universities are clearing student account balances so they can finish or continue school. Clark Atlanta University is one of the latest to do this for the 2020 and 2021 semesters. They're using federal funding from the CARES Act. Nearly a dozen other HBCUs have made similar moves, according to a tally by the United Negro College Fund shared with the Wall Street Journal. Well, you may have a family member going through this right now. The hot housing market and changes during the pandemic are making apartments unaffordable for college students looking for places to live this fall. 34% of college students say they can't afford rent in their own college town. That's according to a new survey out today from Realtor.com.
Due to remote work, due to affordability, and just as importantly, due to quality of life. All these factors, which have caused many people to move from coastal big cities, are now making it very difficult for students to find an affordable place.
Realtor.com economists say with everyone from retirees to remote workers moving to college towns, supply, which was already an issue, will continue to get worse. Students are facing lots of competition and having to look at multiple places to find a spot.
Even in the local market, there are limited opportunities. When we look at construction, particularly for apartments or homes over the last 10 years, we are severely undersupplied. And this is not, particular to any geography, rather it's widespread. So I would say that for the time being, the challenges will remain well into this fall semester.
The median national rent price in June was at more than $1,500. That's about 8% higher than a year ago.
Larger units tend to have rents that are up considerably more. Why I say that, that's relevant, because for many college students, they're not necessarily going to look at a studio or even a 1-bedroom. Many times they will take 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes, even 4-bedroom sometimes, and just take on extra roommates. And it's those very units which have gone up tremendously in the past year.
For a 2-bedroom apartment, for example, the cost was around $180 extra this June compared to a year ago. 19% of students in the survey say their parents are either helping them pay rent this year when they didn't need it last year. Others are choosing to move home to save money.
And now let's get a first check of weather with Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines.
And we are looking at partly cloudy skies across the area today. We may see an isolated storm or two through the evening hours, but I think a lot of us going to miss out on that activity as we do have temperatures in the mid-90s, but it's the humidity that's making it feel about 9 degrees hotter. 103 is the heat index value, and winds are out of the east at 8 miles per hour, so another sultry day here across the Brazos Valley. And notice there's not too much happening here. There have been a couple of showers pop up here as you head back near Georgetown and south of Killeen. Also a couple that moved near Groesbeck back into McLennan County. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet around here. Around the state, there's a better shot of some thunderstorms here just to the east of the Dallas area. That will continue to work more to the west than to the south. So we will be seeing that potential continue. And an isolated storm threat may happen here as we head through the evening hours, but I think they'll be few and far between. In the morning, everything will be done. Then as we head into tomorrow afternoon, looks like more isolated thunderstorms will be possible. And the same can be said for Friday as well. Again, an isolated storm or two. Rain chances about 20% here across the area. So tonight, temperatures dipping down into the 70s, between 75 and 78 degrees. So it's going to be another muggy one. And then tomorrow, highs will be into the 90s for us, right at between 94 and 96 for a lot of us. But again, with the moisture in the atmosphere, it'll feel like it's just over 100 degrees when you factor that in. And checking out that 10-day forecast, 95 degrees on Thursday, 20% chance of some thunderstorms. Same for Friday at 96. We get into the weekend, pair of 97s there for you. Maybe an isolated storm threat on Sunday. Monday, better chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms as a weak front gets into the area. And then it looks like our rain chances will slowly start to dissipate here by the middle part of the week and heading toward the end of the week, highs remaining in the 90s.
The Delta variant has people worried about what COVID restrictions could return. Among those concerns are those who work in addiction recovery. Forrest Sanders is looking into the effort to prevent relapses from starting again if more uncertain times are ahead.
I always had this idea that if you had an office, that was the sign you had made it.
Now that Yolanda Manus has office space, is that how she feels?
No, that's when the work really begins. But I did put some things in that brought joy to my spirit.
And Yolanda's favorite is this, a little picture by her niece Paige of different kinds of women, all queens. To know why this picture means so much, you have to know Yolanda's story.
I grew up in a very rural community. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home that led into methamphetamine use.
Yolanda felt her addiction had become so deep, there was no way of getting through it to the other side.
I literally had no home, really no friends. My body was completely being destroyed. I thought, this is your life.
But changing course, Yolanda arrived to Mending Hearts, a Nashville-based residential treatment service for women.
I wanted you guys to come in with 3 items that show me that you're not the person you were in your addiction.
I brought my alarm clock because I have a routine now.
And it's at Mending Hearts, Yolanda today has that little office with that special picture from a niece, where she now works as Associate Clinical Director. But Yolanda has a new worry. Downtowns across the country are full again. It's so different now from how it all was. In April 2020, a time when the pandemic left businesses locked up and city streets quiet, when the country was under stay-at-home orders. Stress, anxiety, and depression spiked, and by June 2020, the CDC reported 13% of Americans were starting or increasing substance abuse. Mending Hearts did what they had to do, holding their recovery meetings through Zoom. But Yolanda says she knows from her experience the importance of in-person meetings.
For a person in early recovery, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Though the meetings are back in person now, Mending Hearts is watching as the CDC again recommends masks indoors in high transmission areas, reporting the Delta variant is now making up 83% of all new COVID cases.
More than anything that I've heard from them is, are they going to shut our meetings down?
We can't pray that it not come. We have to think that it's coming.
Trina Frierson is the founder and CEO of Mending Hearts. She says in fighting relapses as numbers rise for the Delta variant, she's working closely with medical centers for guidance.
We have the ability to test on site. We have the ability to vaccinate our women here.
And Yolanda says there's a key thing to be taught to anyone in recovery.
Hey, we've already been through something. You'll get through it. You've already got evidence you can.
It's that importance of connection in this time that's bringing so many to this bridge for National Women Touched by Addiction Day. These are people who have lived with addiction, people who love someone who lived with addiction.
Recovery ain't for the punks, right? When you get clean, you reach back and you help somebody else.
And perhaps going into more uncertain times in the pandemic, Yolanda says she's grateful for a special picture in her office and for the artist niece standing with her today. With people there for support, Yolanda believes no matter how deep the addiction, there's a bridge to cross it.
The secret is out. Guess what? We do recover, right? I love you guys.
In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm Forrest Sanders.
Forrest, thank you for that report. Well, finally in our lineup, so many office buildings are sitting empty now as companies decide not to return. How an idea to turn these buildings into housing instead would work.
Here are some of the stories that we're working on for 25 News at 6. We'll be taking a closer look at how Brazos Valley schools are handling the newest CDC guidance, saying kids should wear masks in school this year. Plus, a famous meteor shower is about to reach its peak viewing days. When and how you can catch it. These stories and more coming up on KRHD News. World News Tonight is just ahead, and we're back in 30 minutes for KRHD News at 6. Until then, have a